and elders past and present, we recognise the continued connection to these lands and waterways and extend this acknowledgement to the homelands and stories of those who call this place home. We recognise our future leaders and the shared responsibility to care for and protect our place and people.
Welcome to Sustainable Kitchens. Thank you all for coming along and sharing your time with me on a Thursday evening. I'm in a new commercial kitchen. For those of you who have done my classes before, I used to do it in a home kitchen, and I am now actually working for a new food app which is about to be launched, and they very generously let me use their commercial kitchen. So it's a very nice place to be in. As it was said in the introduction, I'm the owner of Cornersmith, and Cornersmith has been a family business for over 10 years, over a decade. And over that 10 years, it's had many iterations. We have had cafes. I've had a cooking school. I've written 4 cookbooks. I've had a range of pickles and preserves, and I do a lot of food education as well. The main thing with everything that I've done at Cornersmith and in my career is to help people make better decisions about the food that they're eating. And that's not just for themselves. It's for their health, it's for their households, it's for their budget, it's for the community, and it's also for the environment as well. And I think since I started this, the ethos, I guess, has gotten stronger and stronger, and people have gotten more and more engaged with it as we are getting more awareness around food insecurity, cost of living, environmental pressures, and a bit of an overload of information and not quite knowing where to start in the kitchen. And it's remarkable to me that there are so many recipes out there and there's so many amazing cookbooks, and yet still people can't figure out what to cook for dinner or the best way to go about it. So I'm really very passionate about trying to help people figure that out, and to try to make the kitchen feel like it's a really interesting place to be in, but also for it to feel like it can be a little bit of a site for, I want to say activism, but light activism, where you are in charge of the decisions that you're making, which means that you can make better choices when it comes to the ingredients that you're going to buy. You can make a decision to reduce food waste just by very simple habit changing. There's a lot of really important things that you can do in the kitchen. So that's everything that I have been really passionate about, and it's still going on. I guess I started getting interested in sustainability in the kitchen when my kids were very little. They are now very big. My daughter's 18 and on her first European travels. But when they were little and I was home with the kids, I was trying to figure out, how do I live in the city? Because I really like living in the city, but make good choices when I feel quite disconnected to food. Like, I shop at the supermarket, I buy it, I bring it home, I put it in my fridge, I cook. But there was a real disconnect, I think, to where ingredients were coming from. So I was really interested to try to figure that out and to solve some problems. I started off by pickling and preserving because I felt that it was something tangible where I felt like I was doing something. And it was a skill that I was learning. It was fun. It was really, really delicious. And it used up excess produce that I had in the garden and also in the fridge as well. And that, for me, obviously started my journey of Cornersmith, because we became really known as, I don't know, I'm like Australia's pickling sweetheart, I guess. But it kick-started something in me when I was like, oh, the reason why people preserve food is to make food last longer, because most cultures value food so deeply that you would never throw an ingredient away if you could find another use for it. So I was particularly interested to take something that I had excess of and figure out how to make it last. When I first started pickling and preserving and cooking like this, I really believed in bulk. And I would go to the markets and buy, 300 kilos of tomatoes and 16 boxes of peaches. And then I'd have to take a week off work to manage them. But as time went on, my business got busier, my kids got older, life got more hectic. I didn't quite have that time to, spend an entire week bottling cherries or whatever crazy harebrained idea I came up with. So I started to realize that it's really still worthwhile to make one jar of something. And that, to me, clicked something in my brain. And I was like, hang on, you don't actually have to be self-sufficient and live on a farm or be a nonna on a mountain hill somewhere. Me, Alex, in my suburban house in Sydney, can easily figure out how to reduce food waste in really simple and easy ways. So Then I got really interested in ingredients and figuring out the best way to look after those ingredients. Because I think once you realize the importance of food, and I mean like this cauliflower is example, like sure, that cost me $6 or $7, whatever it is. But the environmental resources that went in to grow this are massive. And it's water and it's electricity and it's someone's livelihood and it's, you know, petrol for it to get traveling across the country to get into my fridge. So all those hidden things behind this one cauliflower, when you throw that in the bin because you don't use it all or because you don't look after it well, you're throwing a lot more away than just a bit of cauliflower. So once that was in my head, and I am a very obsessive person and I can't stop thinking about these big things, I was on a mission to absolutely figure out how every ingredient that came into my house would get valued in some way. So the first point of call, and I really want you to think about this with all the ingredients that you buy, is how to store them and how to look after them. I've written 2 cookbooks which are in like the food waste area. One's called The Food Savers A to Z and one's called Use It All. And I think a big part of the book, which a lot of people like, is how to look after ingredients, because we're not taught it. We're taught to kind of come home, shove everything in the fridge and then wonder why our celery has gone limp and our, you know, everyone's like, oh, I buy basil and it doesn't last. It's not meant to last. Basil is a live ingredient and it only lasts a couple of days. So I just want to talk you through a few little tips and tricks on how to look after green things, because it does make a massive difference. So this is how I store, usually there's a lid on top, but I couldn't find it today. This is how I store herbs in my fridge. So I have a plastic container and I have these damp chuckses. Now, if you don't have a chucks, you could also use a tea towel. I don't care if you use an old t-shirt, it doesn't really matter. You just need a fabric that can breathe a little bit. And I want you to keep that lightly damp. And then in it, I wrap up the herbs. So you can see here, honestly, these chives have been in my fridge for a week. I've got coriander wrapped like that. I've only got like a little quarter of a bunch of parsley left over, mainly stems, really. But I wrap all these things up very carefully. Like these are like my little children, my little babies. I'll just give them a little bit of love. And I keep them in a container like this. And this will keep them fresh and it will keep, they feel sort of protected, I guess. So what's happening here is that the air in the fridge, herbs don't like, and they also need a little bit of moisture, but not too much moisture. Don't wash your herbs before you store them, because that's where you're introducing mildew as well. So this is the way that I store all sorts of leafy greens. You can store kale like this. Now, you don't have to keep it in a container like that. You can just, we're just going to pretend that's a big bunch of kale. And I would just get my damp tea towel, roll it up like a giant kebab. And then that can go, depends on how you're feeling. Sometimes I just shove it in like that. Sometimes I put it into a plastic bag or another calico bag and I store it in the fridge. So kale, silver beet, any hard lettuces like a cos lettuce would be okay like that. I would not store soft lettuces in this way. They are bought, you buy them to eat them that day or the next day. They don't like much more than that. English spinach I do keep like this as well, and I can guarantee you it will last for so much longer. Now, I've gone against my own belief here and I've kept mint. Oh, have I? Oh, no, I haven't. I thought I did. I'm so glad. I thought I was being a rebel. So mint and basil do not like to be stored like this. Mint and basil are very sensitive little creatures and they like to be stored. I just store them in a glass on the kitchen counter. You know how sometimes at Woolworths the plastic bag comes around the herbs? I leave that on if you're buying that way. Otherwise, just sit them on a counter in a glass, like a bouquet of flowers. And that's the best way. But mint and basil, if you're buying those ingredients, you buy them to use within a couple of days. So if you're buying parsley and basil or parsley and mint, I want you to use up the mint and basil at the beginning of the week and then use up the parsley and the sturdier greens later in the week as well. Now, we're not talking about celery particularly today, but I just really need to show off about my celery box, which I am so proud of, which I got at Vinnie's for $8. And this is actually a celery Tupperware container. If you're not quite as cool as me and don't have one of these, you can just use a regular container as well. What I do is I get my whole big celery, I chop the bottom off, and I put that either in the fridge or in a container in the freezer for when I'm making stock. I chop the leaves off, and I really hope everyone in the room tonight knows that you can eat celery leaves. Strangely, they taste like celery, and they're salty, they're a bit grassy. I use them in replacement of parsley. So on the weeks that I buy a big bunch of celery, I do not buy other herbs because I use those leafy greens in the same way. So the bum of the celery is in the fridge or the freezer for stock. The leaves are wrapped up in the chucks to be used in salads, to make green sauces out of, to make gremolata, whatever you'd like. And then the celery sticks. Now, the reason why I wanted to show you this is that these have been in there for a month. And I don't know if you can hear on Zoom, but did you hear that crunch? This has been sitting in this container for a month. What you need to do is put the celery in, put like that much water in the bottom, and then seal it. If you are a really goody two-shoes and you don't have much else going on, you would change the water every 3 days. I'm a bit more of a loose goose, and it's lucky if it gets changed every 7 to 10 days. And for the first couple of weeks, everything looks exactly just like celery. As the weeks go on, it might slightly discolor a little. I'm trying to see, I've got one little ugly bit there, which, I would just discard, and then that is really crunchy and really fresh. So I might not, use that as a crudité to dip into something, but I would definitely use that in my spaghetti bolognese as well. So the next time you are at the Central Coast Vinnies and you see one of these, seriously get one, because it's a life changer. Because I think people get afraid to buy a whole celery, and the quarters and the halves are wrapped in plastic, but grab a big one, store it really well, and it will last very well. So suddenly whole ingredients don't seem as overwhelming. There is a proper way to store absolutely every ingredient. You are very lucky you have access to Google, so get onto it or buy one of my cookbooks. And I just want to reinstate that by valuing ingredients, it means that you get home, it's going to take you an extra 10 minutes, but put your fruit and veg away properly. And then you're going to massively reduce food waste, which means you're doing something good for the environment, but you're also saving heaps of money as well. So keep in mind just how important storage is. Then there's the days where you're just like a bit over it and tired, and you've had a massive week and you're over everything, and you do just shove everything in the fridge and you don't look after it, which is absolutely fine. And even I am very guilty of it. So I've got this half cos in my fridge, which I didn't wrap, I didn't look after. It's a bit discolored. I don't know, it's very shiny in this light, but I don't really want to make a salad out of this. What I wanted you guys to get your head around is that there's just because we aren't familiar with a certain way of preserving or preparing food, it doesn't mean it's not delicious. And so culturally around the world, people treat lettuces in very different ways. So the French cook lettuce, it's often sauteed or goes into soups. A lot of Asian cultures stir fry lettuce, which is really delicious. And lettuce is one of the most wasted ingredients in Australia. So please start experimenting with how to cook lettuce. Now, one of my all-time favorite recipes is a soy pickled lettuce. And it's what I do when I just have one crappy bit of lettuce left over. I prefer to do this with crunchy lettuces like cos or iceberg, but I have done it with all sorts of different lettuces. I've also done it with cabbage. And sometimes I've got 2 weird radishes left over or half a cucumber that's seen better days. It's quite a forgivable recipe. What you do, now I've given you a really base recipe in the PDF that you guys have or are going to get. And I'm just going to give you a slightly elevated version of it. So hope you guys can see what I'm doing, but I'm just really kind of thinly slicing my crunchy lettuce. And don't worry if it's quite ugly, because it's going to get covered in soy sauce and vinegar and no one will ever know. So I'm chucking it in the bowl. And what I'm going to do, which is not on your recipe, is I'm just going to sprinkle that with a little bit of salt and a little bit of sugar. And what that does is brings out any excess moisture that's in there. and it sort of starts the pickling process, I guess. Now, I also like recipes. I like some recipes I like that just all happen very quickly. Sometimes all I've got time for is that, and I'll pop it in the fridge and I'll deal with it when I get home from work. And that's when I'll start actually pickling it. So allow yourself like room to like just do little bits here and there as well. I'm going to just sit that to the side for a minute. But if you let that sit for like half an hour or an hour, you'll notice a lot of moisture comes out of there, which is going to make this soy pickled lettuce a little bit crunchier as well. While we're waiting for that to happen, I'm going to add 1/4 cup of soy sauce in there. Now, I don't know if you've pickled before, but generally, or have come to one of my pickling classes, but generally vinegar is what is the main ingredient in pickling. In this condiment, which is based off a Korean style pickle, soy sauce is the main ingredient. And then we're going to add some rice wine vinegar in as well. If you don't have rice wine vinegar, please feel free to use apple cider vinegar or white wine vinegar. I just probably wouldn't do malt vinegar. Actually, you probably could. But yeah, look, rice wine just keeps it in the same kind of flavor profile as well. Then I'm going to put a little bit more sugar in there. So I'm just going to do a tablespoon of caster sugar. And if you wanted to, again, this isn't on your recipe, but if you wanted to, you can add some flavors into here as well. I had a weird little knob of ginger left over in the fridge. So I'm just going to grate that directly into the pot. You could do garlic, you could do chili flakes, you could do, I don't know, if you had like some coriander roots that needed to go in there, you could do a bit of lemon zest. Honestly, anything that's going to add a bit more punch of flavor. Some slices of garlic would be yummy. All right, so in that pot right now, there is vinegar, sugar, garlic. I don't know if you can see in there. And all I'm going to do is just gently bring that up to the boil. And it will, it doesn't need to cook for very long. It just needs to heat up a little bit. So I'm just going to put that on and dissolve it out. This condiment is really, really delicious. It's something that you could eat on fried rice. I often have it where I serve my family just some plain white rice, and we either have a piece of fried fish or grilled fish or a fried egg, depending on if I've been to the shops or not. And then this nice big pile of the soy pickled lettuce. You can add sesame seeds, you could stir fry some snow peas or not. For me, I'm like, everyone's eating something green. I've rescued it from the bottom of the crisper, chucked a fried egg on top, and then dinner is done. And everyone goes to bed happy. And I'm like feeling very smug because I've cleaned out the fridge at the same time as feeding everyone. So I think we need to rethink dinner a bit, that it needs to be this big thing every night. Sometimes it really doesn't. And some soy pickled lettuce, a piece of fish or a piece of chicken or a fried egg and some rice, good enough. And it's really yummy as well. And it's good for you as well. It's heaps better than Uber Eats. So while that's sitting, oh, you can see already actually, is that this liquid is already starting to come out of there. So that's much faster than I thought. It's quite warm in here tonight. So what I'm doing now is just squeezing out any extra liquid, which we don't want in there. And then I just put that lettuce into, I don't have one here. I'm a little disorganized, but a jar or just a little plastic container would be fine. I'm just going to put it into a jug. And then that goes in there. Once your soy sauce has come up to the boil, which really should only take a minute or two. Oh, there we go. We're ready. I'm going to pour that on top. Oh, it smells delicious. I wish there was a smelling thing on Zoom. I'm going to pour that on top. Ginger, soy sauce, a little sugar, and a little vinegar. And then you'll feel like you don't have enough. But what I'm going to do here, and I hope you guys can see, is I'm just pushing down to make sure all the lettuce goes under the brine and is mixed in the brine. So the soy sauce is giving it flavor, and the salt in the soy sauce combined with the vinegar is what makes this lettuce last. So this is going to be really good, probably for me when I go home tonight for dinner, but it will last for I don't know, a month in the fridge maybe. With this kind of preserving, I really wish you could smell it. It smells so delicious. With this kind of preserving, you don't have to have sterilized jars and you don't have to panic. It can honestly just be in a lunchbox in the fridge. And if that was me at home, I would probably put like a little plate on top or a beeswax wrap and just pop that into the fridge as well. And tomorrow, that's going to be really, really delicious. Add some chili in there as well, and it will be extra yummy. I know it might seem a bit kooky, this one, but I really want you to give it a go. You'll be really surprised how delicious it is. And again, if you had a bit of radish, if you had half a carrot that you didn't know what to do with, just finely slice it and put it in there as well. It's very, very adaptable recipe. All right. So now that we're talking about tired herbs, what I'd like to do is show you my next favorite recipe for when you've bought herbs or green things and then you just had a really big week and you thought you were going to eat salads all week and then you ended up going out and getting Uber Eats and now you've got all these green things in your fridge. So herbs and lettuces are the most wasted thing. And I want to make a really versatile green sauce, which is a base recipe. Once again, I really like all my recipes to be base recipes that you can use what you have. Any fresh herb works in this setting. So I've got parsley, and you can see here, I'm chopping the stems up because stems are absolutely edible. They taste just like the vegetable or the herb, but they're much more fibrous. So if you're going to use them in any kind of cooking or recipes, you need to slice them much finer than the herbs. So the food processor can pulverize leaves, but it doesn't pulverize the stems quite as well. So just chop them up. What you are looking for is probably 2 to 3 cups of mixed herbs. You can use dill, you can use coriander. I really would love to get rid of those chives, so I'm going to chuck them in there as well. Dill stems are great. You can do mint or basil, but please don't do basil or mint stems. They are not delicious. They're just very, very fibrous, and they don't have heaps of flavor in the same way. So you just want to use up, I'm going to chop off, this is mainly stems as well. Just going to chop that off, roughly chop it. Sometimes I've been known to chuck in a handful of, like if, you know, when you've got a little bit of baby spinach left over, chuck that in there as well. Do give your herbs a good wash so it's not so gritty. I was so happy I was doing this class because it meant I could really deal with all my old herbs. And like this is a combination, there's dill, there's mint, everything is in there. There's a couple of mint and basil leaves. So I'm just going to roughly, again, chop them all together. And seriously, your herbs can be really tired for this recipe because once again, as soon as it's pulverized with oil and a little bit of vinegar or lemon juice and lots of garlic, honestly, no one knows the condition the herbs were in. So that's going to go in here. If you wanted to, you could blitz up the stems a bit first before you start adding all the other ingredients. And that's going to go in. Oh, yes. Using up all of those things. I get this like huge satisfaction from being a waste warrior. I'm then going to put in 2 garlic cloves. If you love garlic, do more. If you hate garlic, don't do it at all. In it goes. So 2 to 3. I might do 3. Would be really delicious. I guess this is like borderline, I just call it a basic green sauce. You can take it in a chimichurri kind of direction, which is chili flakes, cumin seeds, and red wine vinegar. You could take it in a salsa verde direction and put capers or chopped up pickles or green olives in there as well. You could also take it in like a light pesto kind of direction and put nuts in there. Like it is so like you do you. Use up what you've got, do what you like, and you'll just start to get really comfortable making green sauces. There's in this book in Use It All, there's like a double-page spread of just all the different green sauces. And I really think it's the main thing that I probably make that every single week. and then I use it throughout the week as a way to kind of jazz up food, I guess. So if I was baking potatoes, you would drizzle this on top. If I was, grilling a steak or a piece of meat, you would drizzle this on top. Again, fried eggs with a bit of green sauce. I'm like, yep, everyone got something green into them. It's yummy in a dressing. How else do I serve it? On fish, drizzled, just drizzle it over everything that you eat for a week, and you'll always have to have it in the fridge. All right, I'm sorry about the noise. I'm just going to whiz this up.
Alex, it's really good. We can't hear that at all.
Oh, can't you?
No.
It's my AirPod. So I'll keep talking then. It's so loud here. So I'm just going to whiz that up. What I'm going to do is add a really big pinch of salt. Now, I just want to give you guys a little tip. When a chef says a pinch of salt, they do not mean that. They mean that. So start salting your food more. We call it the crab claw, and that's why food tastes so delicious in restaurants. All right, so that's all getting whizzed up. Then I want to add something acid. So when I talk about a sustainable kitchen, I don't just mean like, I don't use plastic. What I mean is that I don't run to the shops every time I don't have an ingredient. And I think I want people to learn how to be really adaptive kind of cooks. So it needs something acid. And when I say that, you just need to think about what is acidity. So it could be lemon juice or lime juice. It could be red wine vinegar, which would be really delicious in there. Often I don't have either of those things, but I do have like a jar of pickles in the fridge. So I'll just tip the brine from the pickles in there. Or I also save things like after I've eaten all the capers, I save the caper juice at the bottom for reasons like this. So my fridge is completely insane. Like the first two shelves are just like weird little jars. I'm like a scientist and a witch. And my teenage son just constantly complains there's nothing to eat, but there is. So I might do red wine vinegar today, and I'm going to put that in. Quite a generous splash. There's amounts on the recipes, but I prefer to just go rogue. And I'm going to put a bit of pepper in there too. And again, experiment with spices. If you've got heaps of spices in the cupboard, add in some cumin seeds, add in some sumac, add in whatever you want, really. Just start giving things a go. Lots and lots of pepper. And then with the motor running, I want you to pour the oil in. I think a lot of people make the mistake when they're making pestos and sauces that they put everything in and then blitz it all up. What this does is that it gets the green to the right consistency. Then we add the oil, which starts to emulsify it all together. I've used a combination here, see, little scientist, of grapeseed vinegar, no, actually sunflower oil and olive oil. The reason for it is sometimes the big flavors of olive oil can overpower food. So the flavor is too big, but I do like a little bit of it. So I do a combination. It's great. That's a great tip for salad dressings as well, because it's not too big in flavor. And also if you are on a budget and looking for cost saving tips, you can still have lovely olive oil in the kitchen. I don't know if you've noticed how expensive olive oil is right now, but you can neutralize that out with a more neutral flavored oil. So I'm just going to, with this running, I'm going to pour this in. And again, make it as thick or as chunky or as thin as you like. You can splash in a bit of water. You can splash in more lemon juice. I'm just going to have a little taste. It smells so fresh and so green. It is really, really, really delicious, like an extra delicious batch. Yum. So just to recap, that was 3-ish cups of really weird random green things, including the stems, 3 garlic cloves, red wine vinegar, big claw pinch of salt. I might have even snuck 2 of those in, and pepper. And that was it. And it is really delicious. I will put that into a jar or a container. And that would last, I don't know, my publishers tell me to say 3 to 4 days, but I more say like 2 weeks, because it's got lots of oil, it's got vinegar in it, and those things are preserving agents. If you want to top it up with a little bit more oil, you'll get a longer life out of it as well. One of my favorite recipes for that is that I boil little baby potatoes, and while it's still hot, I toss it in that and then just crumble feta or goat's cheese or something on top. And it's really yummy. So I guess I'm just trying to get your head around things like this suddenly make you a better cook. Like, everyone's like, oh, that's so yummy. And you're like, yeah, just whiz up all the weird shit in my fridge. So don't be afraid to be that kind of cook. All right. So I have given you more green recipes in your things, which are some green, I call it green things fritters. And that's where I use up like the weird half bunch of kale and some herbs. They're really, really yummy. We don't have time in this 1 hour to make everything, but the recipe is there. It's a real clean out the fridge recipe. So please give that one a go. It's got a bunch of like 3 cups of something green. It's got a big cup of herbs in it, cheese of your choice. Like, the recipes that I write are very much like, I want you to look in the fridge before, I want you to shop your fridge basically, and you'll find out you actually buy way too much food. So please let me know how those fritters go. They're really yummy and they're really easy to do. And they're a great quick snack or an easy dinner as well. While we're talking about reducing food waste, whole ingredient cooking is really my jam. So I will never buy a half of anything. I will challenge myself to buy an entire cabbage and then figure out how to eat it. And it doesn't feel like I'm eating cabbage all week. I use it in so many different ways. And I think being a good cook is looking at an ingredient and going, I've got 3, 4, 5 ideas of what to do with that cauliflower or that cabbage, which means that you don't have to obsessively plan. You can sort of be a bit looser. And I think that's why we're wasting too much food as well. It's like, tonight we're having this, and then we buy all the ingredients for that. Tomorrow night we're going to have Thai, and I'm going to buy all those ingredients. And while I write cookbooks and I want you to buy my books, I also feel cookbooks are problematic because they tell you to buy these ingredients, but then they don't tell you to do what with the other half of the ingredients. So I just want you to think about a whole ingredient and how to use it. My big tip that I want to talk about is that you can eat cauliflower leaves. You can eat leek tops. Honestly, there's no tops you can't eat except rhubarb. I'm going to say it again. Please do not make rhubarb pesto or fry up your rhubarb leaves. You will die. They are poisonous. Everything else is up for grabs. Sometimes they just need a really good wash, and they need a slightly different cooking technique. So I'm going to show you 2 recipes. One is what to do with the greens, and one is one idea of what to do with the cauliflower. So cauliflower leaves, I'm like the crazy lady at the shops where I chase down the fruit and veggie guy at the supermarket and say, can you go out the back and get me a cauliflower with the leaves? And the reason for it is that when you buy a cauliflower with leaves, like this was a little pissy amount, but if with the big ones, when you buy cauliflower with leaves, you're buying 2 ingredients. So I still get this, and for the same money, I'm getting greens as well. And what I do with these greens is really simple and easy, but basically you just saute them, and they taste sort of cauliflowery and very green, and it's something that you could serve as a side. I often do a chicken and cauliflower leaf pie. My children have no idea what they're eating. They just think it's a green pie. I often don't mention it. You can I often saute this with lots of chili and lemon juice and toss it through pasta. You can fry it all up, even with a little bit of bacon, and put it in an omelette or a frittata. Oh, there's so many things. Think of it just like a green. Because the stems are a little bit more fibrous, chop them quite small, and we just saute them low and slow. I'm just looking for my fry pan. Sorry, everyone. Crash there. So in the bottom of your fry pan, you're going to heat a generous amount of oil. If you're a butter lover, chuck a knob of butter in there as well. And I'm just going to heat that on the stove. And while that's heating, I'm going to chop up some garlic, 1 or 2, again, depending on how much garlic that you love. And into the cauliflower, you flavor it how you want. So tonight I'm going to do garlic, lemon, and chili. You could also go and do ginger and chili as well, and then put coriander leaves through it. Sometimes I do caraway seeds and mustard seeds if I'm kind of wanting something green to serve with a curry or with Indian food. So you sort of just match the flavors to what you're serving as well. The cauliflower leaves will go in, and I'll bring it back to you so you can see it. Cauliflower leaves go in. We let those saute a little bit. Again, you're going to do your big crab claw of salt. In it goes. Lots of black pepper. And whatever spice that you want. Lemon juice would be really nice. Lemon zest would be lovely in there as well. Actually, the other day I did one of those with goat's cheese and the cauliflower leaf saute in a frittata. And it was so yummy. And it's like, it's free food in a way, because you've bought this cauliflower and then you're making sure you use all of it. And I want you to think about all your ingredients like that. Like, you know, even a lemon, don't just juice it and chuck that away. Zest it and then juice it. And you can freeze zest. You can store it in a jar, in a container. You can dry zest. And then you've just got flavor. So it's sort of everywhere we look, there is flavor. And you just need to remember to grab it. Give that a little shake. And a little saute. That will go a really lovely bright green. Sometimes if you're lucky and you get the really big ones, they'll need a much longer cook time. And you can add a little bit of water or stock or white wine and just put the lid on and just soften that down a little bit further. But lots of lemon juice in there, a little bit of zest, salt and pepper, and that is your green. And it's really, really delicious. While I'm waiting for that to saute, oh, and please do that with leek tops. So I don't know why we've been taught to chop those off and throw them away. It makes absolutely no sense. So chop it off, chop it in half, wash out all the grit, and follow that exact same recipe. But also, if any recipe calls for a leek, use the entire thing. I don't know, it just blows my mind. All right. So I just want to show you one of my favorite quick salads for when I've got a cauliflower. I'm just going to do half a cauliflower tonight because it's just me and there's only so much cauliflower I can eat. I want you to get a big bowl, and into the bowl, we're going to grate our cauliflower. I am not much of a let's pretend cauliflower is rice kind of guy, but this has a sort of grain-like consistency when you grate it. It's almost like couscous, I guess, if you were looking for an alternative to figure out what it's like. I just grate the whole thing, stem and all. And for half a cauliflower, you'll probably be able to serve, I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4. But just make as much as, if you were just one person, just grate a quarter of it and you'll get enough. So I'm just going to grate that in. And again, it's lovely when your cauliflower is in good nick, but because we're breaking it down with the box grater, it's sort of okay as well if it's not in the best nick too. The best way to store cauliflowers, I didn't mention that, is to cut the leaves off and wrap them like I told you to. And then for the heads, I get a really big beeswax wrap and cover it. You can put it into a plastic bag, but the trick is the stem or the bottom of it needs to breathe. So don't cover it really tightly. It's the gases that are the sulfurs and gases that are in there need to be able to get out. And if you trap it all in, it deteriorates the cauliflower faster. So you want to cover the florets, but you want its bottom to breathe. Sorry, that was a weird sentence. That's smelling delicious. All right, so I'm grating this whole cauliflower. Sometimes I get a bit bored at the end here, but I will persevere. Okay. Now, into this, I'm not going to grate my hand on television tonight, but do grate that whole thing. Into your cauliflower salad, I want you to add the zest of a lemon. If you have an orange, you can definitely do an orange. You can do a lime. If you've got some preserved lemon that you'd like to use up, do that instead. We want something fresh. So that goes in. I'm going to do lots of pepper. And I'm going to do my big crab core of salt. Again. I'm doing some work with Nutrition Australia, and they used to be like, no salt. And now they've realized that Australians aren't eating enough vegetables. So they're changing their tune, which I wholeheartedly support, to make vegetables taste really, really delicious. And they're encouraging us to season them properly so that we eat more of them. All right, so salt, pepper, lemon zest. Now, you get to choose your own adventure. I'm going to do chili flakes. Because I love them. So, just a little pinch of chili flakes in the top there. Don't have to do chili. Sumac would be really nice. Allspice would be good. You could do cumin. I've got a little bit of allspice here, so maybe I'll do a little bit of that. Could do a tiny bit of cinnamon. I guess we're like slightly Moroccan. And then I'll give that a big mix. I'm going to add some lemon juice. You can add oil. Sometimes I don't really think, I'm not anti-oil at all, but sometimes I don't think it needs it. It sort of weighs down the grains, but absolutely put some in if you want to. Then, again, we're going to choose your own adventure. So I'm going to do some currants because I had a strange little amount left over at the bottom of the packet. So I'm putting currants in. I would be happy for you to do some chopped up figs, some chopped up sultanas. I made it once with some chopped up prunes and it was really delicious. Dried apricots, whatever you've got that's sweet. Pomegranates would be yummy. Even red grapes would be good. They go in. And then I've toasted, you can see there, some pepita seeds. The reason why I've toasted pepita seeds is that I'm never buying a pine nut again because they are so insanely expensive. I feel like I'm going to go bankrupt if I keep buying pine nuts. So I'm doing pepita seeds instead. I just did them in a pan, dry, until they get nice and toasted. But again, if pine nuts are in your budget, they'd be delicious. You could also do almonds. You could do sunflower seeds. You could do hazelnuts, whatever you like. I want to see if you guys can see this here. It's smelling really good. And then, if I hadn't turned all my herbs into a green sauce, I would add, God, look, I'm being a very messy cook tonight. Oh, I've got a little bit more in here. I'm just going to I'm going to chop up some parsley and toss that through as well. Now, the reason I love this salad is that it's light and it's fresh. I feel like it's a change from a lot of the boring salads that are out there in the world. This is something that you can just have for lunch. Sometimes I add in chickpeas in there as well. You can also serve this as part of, I don't know, like you could have hummus and falafels, or you could have some lamb skewers as well. Weirdly, this has become the salad that I serve at Christmas. I don't know why, but everyone's so obsessed with it. I always just get asked to bring the cauliflower salad. So here, my friends, it's for you. You take it. People love this thing. And it's so easy to make as well. Like, I love ottolenghi, but don't get me wrong, you've got to like take a week off work to make one of those salads. And this is what I love. It's like, how long did that take me? 5 minutes, 7 minutes, maybe? It's fresh, it's light, it's yummy. It's really good for your gut. And I highly recommend it. I'm just going to have a little taste because I can't help myself. She's nailed it, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Yum. Sorry that you have to hear me chew, but it's really yummy. All right, so again, this sauteed green, I really want you to try this. You'll be very pleasantly surprised. I'm just going to add some lemon juice in there as well. I forgot to add the garlic. It's still sitting there, but please saute your garlic in there. And then let this speak to you for dinner. I think the thing that I feel is the way that I approach cooking dinner at home. I mean, I'm a very comfortable cook. I'm not this messy usually, and my apologies. Is that anything that comes into my house or anything that I make, I kind of do an audit on. So I will take this home and I will put that in the fridge and I'll say to myself, pick up some fish tomorrow night for dinner. So I let this be the thing that tells me what's for dinner, not the fish or the chicken or we're going to have Mexican. It's like the weird things become the base for my dinner. So if I have half a tub of sour cream in the fridge, that I know needs using, then I'm like, okay, we're having fajitas or we're having pumpkin soup. Like I let the rubbish speak to me rather than getting inspiration from cookbooks all the time. So, you know, I'll put this in a container and take it home and I'll be like, yeah, we'll be having a frittata or omelette for dinner one night this week. So I really want these small things that sort of seem insignificant to be the thing that help you get dinner on the table. I cannot tell you how little food I buy, really. My son's right, there's nothing ever in the house, but they eat very, very well. And I think it's just a different way of approaching food. And it's not new. I feel like when I wrote the Food Savers book, I looked at, I did heaps of research about cooks from other tricky times, whether that was there was rations, whether there was inaccessibility to ingredients, peasant food, as a way to learn how do we be resourceful when we're cooking and how do we reduce our impact. And I'm not like, you know, I've got Doritos in my cupboard and fish fingers in my freezer. Like I'm a, you know, normal mum going to work every day. But this approach to food has massively saved me money. I feel like I've got a lot of diversity in the way that I eat. And I feel like I can sleep at night, that I'm kind of, you know, like doing my little bit to make some change in my kitchen. And it does feel like I'm like being a quiet little activist. And the world feels really overwhelming right now. And I think things like this actually give you some grounding as well as delicious food to eat and well nourished. So I really hope you got something out of this tonight, even if it's just how to store your celery. Like if everyone just stored their celery a little bit better, then we've made a tiny little change. So go forth, my friends, be waste warriors, eat delicious things,